What's going on, everyone? So the San Antonio Spurs have signed Riley Minix to a two-way contract. So they didn't use their last open roster spot for him. Instead, they brought him in on a two-way. This is something that, we talked about after the Summer League and his performance in the Summer League. Personally, this is just me. I didn't really, obviously he had the game winner, so that stood out, but I didn't think he really did enough to warrant. I talked about in the video when I was breaking down all the players that, I'm fine if they bring him in on a two-way. I don't think he showed enough to warrant an actual roster spot, but on a two-way, you keep him there, kind of keep him under the Spurs umbrella, keep him under the Spurs banner. My problem is where is he going to fit in? Right? Because he's already 24 years old, right? Which isn't old, but by NBA standards, he's, 2-3 years away from being in what's supposed to be his prime. He is 6'7", right? He's 230 pounds, slot in 2 through 3 on occasion, maybe if you're kind of going small ball, maybe slot in even at the 4, but really that 2-3 space. A guy that, he is a Spurs guy, very fundamentally sound, a guy that could do a little bit of everything out there on the basketball court, shoot, create for himself, create a little bit for others. You even look at his GLeague Stats, because he only played one game for the Spurs. So we don't even have a point to look at and go oh, hey, well, he showed real promise here. It's he's just a guy where my problem, where is he going to fit in? Right? Where does he slot in on this roster, on the main roster? Again, I know he was signed to a two-way deal, but the idea is at some point he shows enough to convert into a main roster spot. But it's just he's not going to be able to slot in at the guard position because you already have an abundance of those. And then even the 3 spot, you still have several of those. Now, could he maybe at some point kind of work his way into kind of being, just an end of the bench guy? Possibly. It's just, he seems like a guy, just based on what we saw from last year to this year in Summer League, I just think he's a guy that's closer to his ceiling than his floor, and I just don't think his ceiling is enough to warrant the actual Spurs main roster. Right? Again, if you want to keep him in the G League, you want to keep him on a two-way, fine. I don't have any issues with that, especially if you don't have anybody significant that you're oh, this is the guy we need to put on, or this is the guy that needs to be in that spot. But it's just, unfortunately, I just don't think Riley showed enough in obviously, the Spurs feel the same way because they still have an open roster spot. If they thought he showed enough to warrant a main roster spot, they would have brought him in on a main roster spot, right? So obviously they liked him enough to keep him on a two-way, but not enough to, kind of just be the end of the bench guy, which I'm curious to see how they fill the end of the bench. Who are they going to bring in with that 15th roster spot? Because, I've talked about, you could go the youthful route with, somebody like a Riley, or you could go kind of the veteran route with, somebody like a Kevin Love that ends up getting bought out, right? And he can come in, slot in, kind of play a role, but also just be a mentor for some of the young guys, kind of have the capabilities of doing one or the other. But I don't know where, I just don't, unless Riley takes real significant strides, right? I don't know if he's ever going to be a guy that you look at and go that's a guy that's going to make the main roster. I just think that they're what you'd be looking for him to be, even as a catch and shoot 3-point shooter or anything like that. I think you can get those guys. I think you can find those guys, right? I think that they're the role that you're going to have him play. I just think that there's guys out there, and every year there's a guy that is younger that can give you the role he'd probably slot into, unless he really takes some significant strides. Again, he wasn't bad in Summer League. I'm not trying to sell this oh, he's just, he's this bum. I do think he's a solid player. I just, if he was 6'10", right, I'd be sign me up, right? Because they could use that. But him being 6'7", right? It's just, he's kind of slotted in that 2-3 area. I don't know where, and who, right now, who are you playing him over? Right? Nobody. There isn't a guy on this where you look at, you're not playing him over Keldon Johnson, you're not playing him over Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, right? Carter Bryant, I wouldn't even play him over. Just Carter Bryant gives you that defense and that size and that length and that athleticism and the versatility. I don't know where you're going to find a proper place for him on this roster. Right? Keep him on the two-way, sure, fine. It doesn't hurt, and, bring him up. You also got to give him a chance, right? Because last year, he played one game. if you're going to have him on the two-way, then you should let him get spot, minutes here and there over the course of a season. See what he can do on an NBA level, right? Because I'm basing my opinion on the information that we have, which isn't to the NBA standard, the NBA level. Right? Like, he's a guy that I don't think is going to play outside of his realm. I don't think he's a guy that's going to try to do too much. I think he's a guy that'll play within the system that the Spurs have in place. But, I need to see it. It's hard to properly evaluate somebody when, they've played one actual NBA game. It's hard to really fairly assess that player. But it's just, again, I'm looking at his age. I'm looking at kind of like, the from year one to this year in Summer League. And I didn't see that significant growth. I didn't see that growth where you're like, boom, like he's okay. This guy is huge, right? This guy could be a big player for them in a year or two. Like, let him marinate for another year or two on a two-way. He was a guy like I'm indifferent on. Right? Like, them signing him to a two-way, cool. Right? I'm not like, oh my God, what are the Spurs doing? But it's not something where I'm like, man, that's a great signing. Right? Like David Jones-Garcia, excellent sign. Like, I understand that. Keep him. Right? He's a guy that really stood out. He's also younger. It's like, Riley, like, where does he slot? But going off of his GLeague stats, because it's all we really have to go on. So his stats were 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1.3 assists. Right. Again, the issue is that, like, you kind of look at his percentages. Right, in 2024, 2025, he shot 43.8% on 5.3 attempts, which is excellent, right? He showed in Summer League that he can knock down the three and give you some consistency in that regard, right? But, I mean, again, it's like, is he going to get the opportunities because he's a guy that can self-create, create a little bit for other, like, is he going to be able to do that? Like, are you going to operate him as, like, a guy that you're giving the ball to and letting him go to work? Probably not. You have De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, right? Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, right? Like, so again, now he is and has shown that he can be a good rebounder, right? So that is beneficial, right? A guy that could be in there at 6'7", can rebound the basketball. But so Riley Minix, for the Austin Spurs, averaged 19.3 points per game in the 2024-2025 regular season, so the G League. So, like I said, the 30 points overall was cumulative for everything. He also averaged, during the course of that regular season, 6.9 rebounds, 2.1 assists per game. Again, it's just, looking at G League stats, it's great, but we've seen a lot of guys that have torched the G League and never amounted to actual NBA stats. I look at this as just fine, right? I'm indifferent about it. I don't think it's a great move. I don't think it's a bad move. I just think he's a guy that eventually somebody else will take his place. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.